You're live. Have a great meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chair Kite, and I would like to welcome you to the November 11th, 2020 Historic Resources Commission meeting. The HRC is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes, the City of Asheville's Unified Development Ordinance, and Buncombe County Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness for alterations, demolition, new construction, and other work within historic districts, or for the alteration and demolition of historic landmarks and other duties, including preliminary review of subdivisions as specified in the ordinances for the HRC. All commissioners and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through commission meetings a bit differently than normal. We are streaming live on the city's virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city's website, as well as through the link on the HRC webpage. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering code 9384. Welcome to all of you that are joining us today. I will now ask all of the commission members who are participating to introduce themselves. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking, and when you have a question or would like to speak, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute yourself after you're done. Commission members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Vice Chair Eakins.
Hi.
Mr. Hornaday.
Hello.
Ms. Lazarus.
Hello.
Mr. Mitchell? I think he's maybe not here. Alex. Ms. Spring?
Hello.
Ms. Watson?
Hello.
Ms. Mercedes?
I don't see her on either.
Okay. Ms. Gardner?
Hi, everyone.
Mr. Vaughn?
Good evening or afternoon.
Mr. Mitchell? Did I see him join? No. Okay. To help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud and will ask for a vocal roll call for each vote. We will consider the minutes from the October 2020 meeting of the HRC. The minutes include findings of fact and conclusions of law for certificates of appropriateness. Are there any corrections?
I move that that we adopt the October 14, 2020 minutes and findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay, that was a motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Ms. Watson. I will confirm that with a roll call vote. Vice Chair Eakins?
Aye.
Ms. Mercedes? Oh, she was not here. Commissioner Gardner?
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday?
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Aye.
Commissioner Spring?
Aye.
Commissioner Watson?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye.
Myself, aye. The minutes have been adopted. We will now begin the evidentiary hearings for the items listed on the agenda. As a quasi-judicial proceeding, the HRC is not setting policy, nor are we soliciting public opinion on the desirability of an application. The HRC hears and considers evidence presented and applies the standards set forth in the guidelines and standards of the specific historic district for that application. The HRC must make its decision on competent, material, and substantial evidence to determine the facts of the hearing. The HRC will use judgment and discretion to apply these standards contained in the relevant guidelines to the facts. The commissioners, in voting for an item, will not have a fixed opinion, not susceptible to change, will not have a conflict of interest, and will not have engaged in ex parte communication regarding the application. The rules for speaking. This meeting is open to the public, but participation is limited to interested parties who wish to provide comment or testimony regarding the proposal. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts of how they relate to the relevant historic district standards and guidelines, not personal preference or opinion. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. At this time, I will administer the oath for all individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. I understand that some folks with applications are already present in the meeting, and that we may repeat this exercise as folks join for applications further down in the agenda, or as the public may wish to comment. So this may happen a few times over the course of this meeting today.
Chair Kite, do you have the document open that has the list of folks?
Yes. And I think we've got John Templeton is present. I think Kevin Westmoreland is here. Pierre Goslin is here.
I just added Joe Scully for 3 Boston Way also. And I think the only person that I don't see maybe is, I see Robin Collins, but I don't see Stephen Collins.
And I see Brent Campbell also, yes.
Yeah, Brent's here.
And Stephen's not going to make the meeting.
Okay.
This is Rob.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thanks, Rob.
And I've got Alex on the list that she gave me, Christopher Iannucci.
I think Pierre dropped off. He left the meeting, I believe.
Just came back. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. Is it just you, or is Christopher with you?
No, Christopher is not with me, so it'll be just me. But I'm sorry, I've been losing connection every so often, so but it just got back.
Okay, no problem. If you have to, if you drop off and you need to call in and it's time for your item, just chime in so we know you're there, or you can just send me a quick email and let me know if you need to call in.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I'm going to read the affirmation and then ask you individually by name to affirm, sort of one at a time. So if you'll just bear with us as we sort of go through this in a systematic way. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? John Templeton?
I do.
Kevin Westmoreland?
I do.
Joe Scully? Joe, you may have to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I do.
Pierre Goslin?
Yes.
Brent Campbell?
Yes.
Rob Moody?
Yes.
Robin Collins?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Alex?
I do.
And Shannon?
I do.
Okay. Now we will move to our first public hearing item. Our staff liaison, which is Alex Cole, will introduce herself and share her screen to go through the slides for all of the presentation. It's common for us to have technology issues following a presentation, screen freezes, or participants have infrequently sort of been kicked out of meetings. If it happens, just hang up from the meeting and re-enter using the same link that you were given to join the meeting initially, and we will adjust accordingly. Once the staff presentation is finished, the commission will get to ask any questions, and then we'll turn the presentation over to the applicant for any additional information or comment. with follow-up questions by commissioners. Following that will be an opportunity for public comment, and our CAPE folks will let us know if there's callers on the line to address a particular application, and then we'll have some follow-up discussion and resolve whatever things need to be resolved in a particular application. So our first item on the agenda is old business. Before we get to 16, the Circle is the first application. We do have one other item of old business that has requested a continuance to the December meeting. I'd like to go ahead and do that prior to starting our application.
Chair Kite, it was continued at the last meeting to December. So it's just on the agenda as a placeholder.
Okay. Never mind. So Alex, I will turn it over to you for 16, the Circle in Albemarle Park.
Thank you, Chair Kite and members of the commission. My name is Alex Cole. I'm an urban planner with the Planning and Urban Design Department. And the first item is old business from the last meeting. Some updates on this application. So initially it was for the 4 items or 5 items, repair a walkway, repair the large retaining wall, repair and rebuild of a smaller garden wall, stream bed restoration, a new walkway, and then installing a stone veneer on the concrete block patio foundation. So since the last hearing, Mr. Templeton communicated to me that they were going to remove the patio foundation and the creek bed restoration pieces from this application, as they seem to be complicating matters a bit more. So for now, it's just the 2 retaining walls and the walkway. So I didn't add anything into my presentation for the walkway, since there seemed to be consensus for that being okay at the last meeting. So really the only change in this application, and I would like to ask Mr. Templeton to clarify a little bit because I'm not 100% clear, but I believe that the plan is to do the retaining wall would be repaired partially with concrete block where it had been concrete block before, and then where the stone portion collapsed, that would be a stone veneer. I've noted in my staff report the same, or just reiterated what I said to you all last week, that I don't think it's appropriate to rebuild the wall with concrete block, any portion of it, even if it was that way to begin with. Whenever folks are doing repairs in the historic district, if they're repairing something that was not historically appropriate in the first place, then it should go back in something that meets the standards. So obviously this wall needs some structural support, so I think it's appropriate to construct it with concrete block, but to face it with a stone veneer, the whole section that is being repaired. And then the second thing I've noted is also a reiteration from last meeting that we should, that there should be a condition in the CA that staff is consulted in the field once vegetation is being removed from the other wall, so that we can verify that the stone material to be used is similar or matching to what's there as closely as possible. And the other thing I think we probably need to just confirm or reconfirm, I'm not sure on, is that wall is also partly concrete block and partly stone. So I just want to verify that everyone is on the same page as far as the repair material for that wall. So those are my points, and they're basically the same as last time around. So happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Commissioners, do you have any follow-up questions for Alex? Okay. Mr. Templeton, have you got some additional information to add or clarifications to what Alex has presented?
It just was my understanding, and I guess this is from the neighborhood, that when something fails falls apart, that it's replaced with what was failed or fell apart or better. So if a modern window was broken beyond repair, it would not have to be replaced with a old window, single pane window. So that's why I put in there or put in the proposal that where the stone had failed because of the flood, that stone would be replaced there, and that where cement block had fallen down, that would be replaced with cement block. So it will be going back to what we originally purchased in 2003, plus being more secure or more stable. To add, I have no issues with the condition of verification. I sent some more pictures in, having pulled off the vegetation from the garden retaining wall, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Totally intend with that wall that it will all be stone or stone veneer to look like the other retaining walls in all my in the yard, as well as there are several others in the neighborhood that all look very similar. And there's a picture from the first application that will represent this.
Commissioners, are there questions for the applicant? James?
Yeah, can you refresh our memory how much of the cinder block portion of this wall is visible to the public versus Mr. Templeton or his neighbors, please?
So there is a picture, there's a few pictures in there that I sent in the second package. In the summer, for the public, for anybody driving on on Canterbury, you really can't see the wall. In the winter, when the leaves fall, you get an obstructed view of the wall. The Matthews from their porch can see part of the wall. Of course, if they walk into their backyard, they can see all of it.
Sorry, I was looking through the images, John, and I usually go in and manipulate the photos to rotate them so that they're not sideways, but I would just back into the scan and they're all still sideways. So I don't know if it's helpful to show those, but to his point, it's really not highly visible from the road, but it is visible within the neighbor's yard. And I would just add that in the past, I think that's a great example that he mentioned about windows, because we do actually require, if something is a historic material and it's damaged beyond repair, then we say, for a wall, we say reuse as much existing material as possible, and then it should be, any new material should match the existing as closely as possible. But if it's something that's not historic, that doesn't mean that if it's damaged and you need to replace it, that the commission hasn't in the past approved for something to go back with a modern material like a window. We've in the past had applications where someone had a whole bank of vinyl windows that they needed to replace, and the commission required that they be wood because it was a historic house. So, partly that's because we recognize in preservation or in normal life, sometimes things are altered in a modern way, before the guidelines existed or, in whatever the situation may be. But then once something starts to fall apart, that's an opportunity to restore it to something that's more historically appropriate. So that's where staff's opinion is coming from.
So, Alex, are you saying you're in agreement with Mr. Templeton, or is there a disagreement?
No, my recommendation in the report is that the wall should be entirely stone veneer for the portion that's being repaired. So it's, just because it was concrete block at some point in time doesn't mean that is what's historically appropriate to go back with now. So.
Does it make a difference that this wasn't by choice? This is a misfortune. It was flood brought this down and I have to repair it. It's not something I wanted to do to make it look better or to change the look or what have you. Does that make a difference because it was unintended?
I don't think so. I don't know what the other commissioners think, but I don't think so.
Because it adds a fair amount to the value, to the cost. And I do not, I'm a physician, I'm comfortable, but I'm a pediatrician. I have limited budget here. That is part of the reason some of the other things were pulled off the work list was, I only have so much to spend on this project.
I'm just saying that's not our purview, that's not our concern. I understand your concern.
Okay.
Alex or Dr. Templeton, there's a updated application drawing received 11/9. Can you go to that, Alex? The drawing of the entire section of wall. And Dr. Templeton, if you could say, how far do you think you're repairing the concrete, the cinder block portion?
So it's about an 18-foot. Well, it's a 16 feet that is going to be repaired. It's not a 16-foot portion of wall that has fallen at present, but with the engineer and the contractor to make it secure and work well, it'll be about 16 feet. Which will be altered during this repair, and it's about 8 and 8. The best I could tell from the damage is, and it's shown in that drawing I think you're referencing, that where the cement culvert was about the union point of the cement block and the stone. And there should be a representation of the intact. I sent in a 2-scale representation of the intact wall and the destructed wall and the damaged wall.
I'm trying to rotate these really quickly while y'all are talking. So continue, and I'll put them on the screen as soon as I can get the finish. It shouldn't take but just a minute.
So there's 27 feet of stone bridge getting repaired with materials of stone, and then an additional 16 feet headed south.
No. So the entire damaged spot is 16 feet. So it'll be 8 feet of stone and 8 feet of block. Now, the entire original stone structure was 27 feet. And then it's the visual is much better when Alex can get it pulled up. And it's 12 feet of before the flood of cement block of the entire 90 feet. Only 27 feet are stone.
So if I may, I'm going to restate this to make sure I understand it. So if a 90-foot wall, there's a 27-foot aspect of stone. Of that, 8 feet of it would be cinder block when all is said and done. So if I'm understanding, out of the 90 feet, 8 feet total would be cinder block, yes?
No.
Okay, then I'm glad I asked.
There we go. Well, you can see part of it. That's not the entire drawing.
So do that math for me. Of the entire length of wall that we would see, how much of that 8 foot of cinder block would it represent?
Okay, of the entire 90 feet. So from the beginning of the feet, if you're looking at this from the right, you see the 51 feet, that's all cinder block.
Okay.
And then there's 27 feet of stone.
Okay.
And then on the left of that, which is out of the picture, is 12 feet of cinder block from the original before it fell down.
Okay.
Now, so of the 27 feet that you can see on that lower picture, if you could see the rest of the rendering, you would see that there is 8 feet that need to be repaired, and then also 8 feet of cinder block that need to be repaired. Unfortunately, these are, to make it look better, I put it on 8 by 12. So there's this doesn't help as much as what if it was you could see the entire thing.
Yeah, I think that's what's confusing us, is that we can't, the whole drawing wasn't included in the packet. This is all that we have, so.
It was included. I looked at it before I sent it to you.
I mean, I haven't done anything with the pages, except for rotate the pages. So, I mean, I don't know what to say because we don't have what you're describing in the documents that you submitted. Just these two drawings were what was in there, and then it goes into photos.
Alex, if you scroll a few more pages down there, that might be what he's talking about. Is one more.
This is the engineer.
That's the old one. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of helps show what he's.
The portion that we're talking about. Yeah.
Is that right, Dr. Templeton?
That's a rendering of how it will be once it's repaired. That they will work the rock in with the cement block. And that's why they have to pull some of the rock out now, is to put that in properly so it doesn't just fall down again. The damaged part of the rock is less than 8 feet, but we estimate when it's repaired, 8 feet of rock will have to be changed. And that's what I'm saying will go back as stone veneer. So it'll look like it did before it fell down.
Commissioners, are there other questions for the applicant? Okay, then I'm going to open the floor for public comment.
We have one caller on the line. Please stand by. Team, are you hearing Jane Matthews?
No.
It sounded like she just said hello, but it was echoing.
Miss Matthews, can you try to speak again for us? Alex, can you hear her?
No.
No, we can't hear her.
Stand by, Miss Matthews. Hold on. Alex, it looks like someone in the meeting muted our conference bridge. The last number is ending 01, and so I'm having difficulty connecting to Ms. Matthews. Stand by. I can't unmute from on this side. Can you unmute that number since you're the organizer?
What did you say the number? Is it the 855 ending with 01?
Yes.
It says I can't unmute them.
Ashley, what if I forward Ms. Matthews the meeting link?
That can work, but I still need to get that meeting line unmuted. Stand by.
Can we remove it, Ashley, and then add it again and I can email her and ask her to call back. Okay.
It's unmuted.
Got it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Jane,
Ms. Matthews, can you hear us now?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Alex, are you hearing Ms. Matthews?
Yes, Ashley, all good. Thank you.
All right, and please,
Okay.
Members, do not mute that conference line. Ms. Matthews, you're live. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I assume that I need to get sworn in. So.
You do. That's the next step. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So again, my name is Jane Matthews. My family lives adjacent to the Templetons at 12 The Circle. And the wall in question is our boundary between our two properties. I apologize, and I realize that probably the PDF was not sized for the size drawing that Dr. Templeton had. But so I do not quite understand, but if I'm looking at the drawing that is currently on your screen, the stone actually went at least in as it was in situ before the damage to the culvert. To at least the center line of the culvert. And as I pointed out to Alex, I haven't seen any drawings since the last meeting, but I did point out that there have been two walls built with HRC approval within the district, since we've had guidelines, and that's been the wall along Cherokee Road and the wall at the top of Cherokee and Sunset Terrace. And those walls are veneered walls. They were originally all stone, but they went back as block or concrete walls that then were veneered with stone to fit into the character of the community. And I support staff's recommendation to try to do that, to keep the integrity of the community as best we can. And even though it's not visible all year round, it is visible. It is visible to us in our backyard as we use it. It is visible from the road during the winter. So I encourage at least the commission to consider having a veneered. And the dimensions on this drawing that is currently on the screen that I am seeing, doesn't add up to all the square footage of the existing stone wall. So I know it says approximately 10 feet, but it is, I think Dr. Templeton pointed out, the wall is at least 28 feet of stone. So it is a longer stone wall, and as I think was pointed out, was probably part of a bridge system that went over the stream at one point. So thank you. I appreciate your consideration of that as you look at this proposal.
Thank you. Do we have other callers for public comment?
One more caller.
Yes, hi, this is Heather Templeton. I'm also owner of 16 The Circle, Dr. Templeton's wife.
Heather, I'm going to need to swear you in before we get to your input, okay?
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Floor is yours.
So I want to give a little background to the wall and why the wall collapsed to begin with. The city and the HRC built a wall up above us on Cherokee, a stone wall. And there was an easement given by one of our neighbors that rerouted water onto the below properties, onto Canterbury. And that is the property that is above us, and then on down to the Matthews, on down to the Garvins, and then to the Manor Inn. We never had a water issue in our backyard as long as we've owned the home. We bought the home in 2002, moved in 2003. We never ever had a water issue until I think it was 6 years ago. The Matthews are shown multiple times filming that the damage that was being caused by this wall up above destroyed our wall. I think asking us to do something that was never, we did not, like I said, have a problem. It got so bad that we, as a neighborhood on Canterbury, got together as a neighborhood and hired an attorney to settle with the city to pay for these things. Now, the Matthews were in on that. That was us. That was the Casses that own the property above us, and their property has been destroyed beyond repair. It involved the Garvins, and it involved the Manor Inn being in on this. And so now we are having to pay for something that we never had an issue with. And so to ask us to go outside of the guidelines that were set to repair it with what was there is really, it's not appropriate. And it sets a precedence to start asking homeowners when neighbors or the HRC suggest to do something outside of the guidelines. And then people will not know going forward how to do things. John used the example of the windows, and then, Jane used the example of the stone wall. Well, then I might suggest that the Matthews do something different to their house because that's my view. The wall cannot be seen from anywhere. From Canterbury, even with the leaves falling off in the winter, it's hardly visible. It actually supports a historic pillar. The cement wall supported our historic pillar that is at the back of our driveway. And I think if we all start talking about our views and what we look at in other people's yards constantly, and that dictates, we are really seriously should look at changing the Albemarle Park guidelines. Especially when we're talking about a financial crisis. We're in the midst of a pandemic. We're asking people to spend money that's needless, and it feels insulting.
Okay.
Ms. Templeton, I thought you said at the beginning that the city and HRC built a wall, and the HRC wouldn't actually build a wall. I just want to be clear on that.
They built a wall up on Cherokee, They were having water damage coming down Cherokee, so they built a retaining wall, and it is stone up there. And then they put in all sorts of other things to slow the water down. The water ultimately dumps out onto Canterbury, onto our neighbor's property, which then gushes onto our property, and that is why our wall collapsed. And so we've been dealing with the city. We hired an attorney, like I said, with the Matthews because they knew the devastation of our property. Everybody, the Manor Inn, and we ultimately dropped it because, suing the city for our damages were going to legally cost us probably just as much, if not more, to fix it. And, we threw our arms up and said, we're going to fix it. And the guidelines state to put it back the way it was. And so I think we really are setting a bad precedent if we start to say, as Jane says, this is my view. If we start to talk about that kind of stuff, we should really start to look at, are the guidelines antiquated, and should we change them? Because it's setting a bad precedent. Especially when, like I said, it's a pandemic. We have to look at priorities financially, people, and so if no one can see it and no one can, and we keep our property beautiful, we would not put anything in bad.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. Do we have other public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, I'm going to close the floor for public comment and open back up for further commissioner conversation. Alex, one item, it looks like in our commissioner packet, the design standards folders are locked. I was going to try to pull up the Albemarle Park standards to be able to read those.
Okay. Let me fix it for you.
If I may interrupt real quick, we haven't talked about replacing the culvert itself. Is that within the purview of the HRC or just the city?
Both. I think, John, I think, you're obviously going to need additional permits for that work. So you'll need to contact Development Services to see what's required. I'm glad you asked that question because I did want to ask you about the trees that are along the street. Will they be affected by the work that you're proposing? The ones that are above your driveway, not where the culvert dumps out.
Yeah, they may be. We're going to try our best not to.
Okay.
We frankly don't have a choice but to replace the culvert.
Right.
We're just going to do our best. And what we plan to do, and if you look back at the rocks or the stone that you took a picture of today, there's one river stone in there that's small but a good representative. We're just going to do a simple head wall for the culvert to protect it from erosion. It'll be very simple and hopefully quickly grow over with grass and moss and stuff like that.
Okay, just note that if you get into if this is approved and you're moving forward and the trees are going to be affected, you'll need to follow up with us so we can amend the CA.
Okay.
I just shared the design standard folder with all of you. I don't know what the deal is with all of these shortcuts I've added, but are you able to open the individual shortcut for the landscape standards?
I'm trying. No.
No. Okay. Sorry. Let me just share that individually with you. Google, it's so fun sometimes. Just so you can fast forward to the page once you can get it open. It is listed in the staff report, and it's
34 and 35.
Yes, ma'am.
Walls found on pages 34 and 35, right? There we go.
Also on page 20, there's some general statements about returning or recapturing to original design style of structure or landscape.
Page 21 of that guidelines where you were saying is that's a photograph of the Templeton's entrance of the circle facing wall of the stone is seen in that picture as a FYI.
Ms. Lazarus, this is Janice Ashley. You mentioned page 20 on the is it the landscape design standards and guidelines? Is that what you're talking about? Because I don't see that as referencing.
I'm sorry. It's in the architectural guidelines, and they reference landscape and architectural. It's just like it's part of the preamble.
On page 20.
On page 20. Sorry for that.
And people can look through, but staff, I think, Alex, you had mentioned that you had a specific standard in mind, and you might want to read that and then maybe just confer with the applicant. I think one of the people giving testimony said somehow this is going outside of the guidelines. So maybe sometimes we have very clear guidelines in this regard. Sometimes they're encourage, suggest. So, it might help to say, how do you read it, Alex? And then Mr. Templeton, if there's a particular guideline that you were referring to, that you would like the commission to consider, that could be helpful. So Alex, why don't you, if you're able to, just go ahead and say which one were you thinking of, and any other commissioners, if there's one in particular you're looking at, like Ms. Lazarus, that might be helpful to this conversation.
Sure. So I think I touched on this a little bit when I was giving my report last time around, that, when you look at Parsons' design for this, first of all, it's one of the first planned neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods in the country. And the landscape was designed specifically for this neighborhood. Low stone walls were found throughout the district as everything that is kind of in Albemarle Park is like well fitted within the landscape. There aren't any walls most of the walls aren't, big barriers or anything like that. So most commonly are these low stone walls that you can see on page 34. One thing I've said at the last meeting was that, the guidelines don't specifically prohibit block walls. But I mean, that's really just, I think, because many of our design guidelines don't prohibit specific materials because they weren't found throughout the district. So they're not called out as an appropriate material, if that makes sense. So my interpretation, just looking at the actual context of the historic context of the neighborhood, is that stone is an appropriate material. If you look at the guidelines on page 35, it does say that brick walls could be considered in some instances. It says that, construction finish of rock walls should be dry laid and mortared and should resemble dry laid. Massive built walls are encouraged. Veneer stone facing construction is acceptable in cases where more strength is needed. So just to reiterate what I said before, and I understand the challenge here that, the problem wasn't necessarily created by the property owner. And that's not actually uncommon. When, old things start to fail over time, it just is sort of the nature of the beast. And as Chair Kite pointed out at the last meeting, one thing that's clear about this wall is that the stone portion is withstanding the test of time better than the block wall that was added later. But just to reiterate,
the rest of the stone wall isn't there. Of the 90 some feet, there's only 27 feet of stone left.
Okay. So in my time with the commission, the way that the commission has operated in terms of restoring something back, if something is damaged, if there's a treatment that wasn't historically appropriate, it's not considered appropriate to go back with that treatment when you're repairing something. So in this case, staff pulled out the standard that speaks to the stone veneer because this wall obviously needs more structural support because of the water flowing through. So those are the guidelines that we use. I will say that the way that the Albemarle Park standards are written overall, I think for more of the context to understanding rather than having so many specific standards that kind of bullet point out like what is specific. If you read all of the whole document, it really talks about the whole context of the neighborhood. And again, stone walls were a feature historically found in the landscape. So, and concrete block would not be considered historically appropriate in most contexts. So, is that helpful? Anybody have any other thoughts on the guidelines that you're looking at or questions?
I think one point of clarification in terms of responding, Alex, to your explanation and also in reading the guidelines, certainly there's on page 34, it says all repair, extension, and replacement of existing walls shall utilize the same materials, techniques, and maintain the same appearance as the original. And I guess for me, I think the divergence in how, Alex, you're interpreting the guidelines and how I think at least some of us as commissioners are interpreting it. Clearly, the cinder block wall is not an original part of the Albemarle Park planned community. If it has over time been replaced an original rock wall with cinder block, then certainly using original materials in this case would not be to replace it with concrete block again. It would be to return it to what would have been part of the planned community in the first place, which would certainly not have been concrete block. And so I think that's the challenge that we're facing is in understanding, and making a decision on what we think those guidelines say in this context, because it is clear that over time, the original wall has been replaced with concrete block. and that the original wall would have been stone. And there's certainly evidence that portions of it obviously still are stone. And so I'm a little bit stuck on the idea that we're going to put back a wall that doesn't move back in the direction of the original that would have been in place there. And I'm a little stuck on the idea that it's going to be sort of a mix match. And I understand that a 90-foot wall is a lot to tackle, and certainly we would never replace the whole thing at once if it was had structural integrity to it. But as the opportunity presents, I think in every case and other instances where we've added walls in the neighborhood, they have been required to be at least have stone veneer. And I know, I'd love to hear some feedback from other commissioners. I think the Templetons need to sort of get a clear understanding of where the commission stands with regards to the application, so that we know how to proceed forward.
Chairman, I feel that the statement you just read from the middle of page 34, that's really probably the most important aspect of the guidelines that we would be referring to right now. So I think just that one 2-sentence statement pretty much sums up what the guidelines are calling for. They're calling for something as close to an original material and even an original type of structure as possible. And I know in this case, building with an actual stacked stone in order to be just like the original is probably not very logical. Just because since this wall has failed before, I know they need to keep it very structurally stable. But I think putting at least a stone veneer on the exterior in order for it to mimic what would have been the original would be the most appropriate decision.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
So is there some Solomonic way of splitting the baby here a little bit? Because I am not insensitive to the Templetons' comments about being in the middle of a pandemic and economic distress. Is there something we've done in the past where we've spread this out over time, where we said you've got 2 years to finish the veneer? Because clearly they have to rebuild the wall. Clearly we wouldn't want them to just walk away and say, fine, we're just going to leave this as it is. So can we say, yes, you have to eventually do veneer, but we'll give you a longer time frame and you don't get your final permit until that's done, but helping to spread the cost of this rather than, I'm just not insensitive to the economic argument.
That's a great question. And I think that certainly I have empathy in the situation as well. I don't know the specific answer to that. So I would look to Alex or Janice to help us with the specifics of your question regarding length of time. But I would like to remind the commission and to caution the commission about our purview and understanding that it's our responsibility as a commission to make decisions around the context of the guidelines. And that it is more difficult to consider other factors beyond that, because that allows opportunity for inconsistency in future applications. And so I would remind us in our context that while we all are empathetic to the situation, and certainly we're in the midst of things that are not the uncharted territory for all of us economically and in the pandemic, that we do want to be very cautious that we stay within our purview. As to the question of time and whether or not there's additional consideration for how long a project can stay open to allow opportunity for it to be finished completely, I might look for Alex or Janice to provide us some additional clarity there.
The only other example where I can think that we do that is for new construction projects for landscaping. And obviously we have to do it that way. I don't know that, Janice, there would be any legal issues so much as it would, like you said, Chair Kite, be kind of setting a precedent that might be a challenge for us to manage. Because how do we not give extra time to all applicants? You know, the CA expires within a year, but they don't have to finish the work within the year. They just have to start work within the year, and that includes just applying for any other permits that might be required. So I don't know if that helps kind of expand their amount of time that they could finish the work. But it seems like it would be a little bit of a challenging precedent to set in terms of us being able to follow these, you know, till the end if they're stretching way out beyond, you know, the kind of allotted amount of time that is typical. Shannon, Janice, any other thoughts?
So as Alex indicated, there is a fair amount of time already sort of built into the process. So I think the HRC approval will be good for a period of time during which the permit would need to be applied for. Once the permit is applied for, then it takes some time for that to be approved. And then once it's approved and issued, it's good for a year, during which the project just needs to be initiated, not completed. So that tends to kind of stretch out, and oftentimes it could be extended almost 2 years, a year and a half or so, if that's what somebody wanted. That's not typically what people do. Usually they intend to initiate the project as soon as they get their permits, but there have been instances where people have stretched it out. The only other way we could potentially extend an approval is through bonding for the infrastructure, but you won't get final approval until, you won't get a CA, you won't get that, or not a CA, but the final, well, it's not really a CO for a wall, but you won't get that final closeout until that work is completed and the bond is closed or voided. And there is a cost associated with the bond typically. Bonds are usually held out for very large projects that might be constructed in phases, not something like a simple construction wall, or a retaining wall. So it would be a very unusual case. So I don't think it would be practical in this situation, I guess, is what I would recommend.
I'm not sure what kind of timeline you were thinking of, or what the applicant thinks of that, but perhaps just knowing that there would be time to come back and apply the stone veneer if that's the process. The main point is that the approval, what gets approved, and you could not receive your final permit unless it was done in accordance with the certificate of appropriateness. So if it might help time, economically to do it over a year and a half, maybe the applicant, if they understand that this process can be longer, I don't think that the commission would put that in as part of the certificate of appropriateness to give them, I don't know what you're thinking beyond 2 years. I can only think one time there was someone who had a fence. She had a vinyl fence in Montford, and she did have an economic hardship, but unfortunately, as the commissioners have said, that cannot be a consideration, because this is a process where we're granting certificate of appropriateness based on these specific standards. And so anyone could come with their personal issues of why they can't or can't meet the standards. And when you're in a historic district, it's the standards that have to guide that. And in addition to the specific standards that are mentioned, the overarching approval that's required by statute for a certificate of appropriateness is that it's compatible with the historic character of that historic district. So all of this, the guidelines may not be as clear, but in the end, you have to be able to say that what's being built meets the historic character. And so that is why you're hearing the commissioners call out and say, when something's being replaced, you need to match the materials as close as possible to what would have originally been there or what's compatible with that district. So long way to say, it sounds like that is what the way the commissioners are reading it. But the timing, that may help in terms of getting that done. But the approval would look very much the same. The certificate of appropriateness would say the stone veneer would have to be on there at some point before final certificate could be granted.
Thank you, staff.
I did just double check the validity period. So the certificate of appropriateness, once issued, is good for a year, during which you would apply for your building permit. So you could wait, 11 months, 11 and a half months, apply for your building permit. That permit would be good for 6 months at least. You could probably get that extended. So there is time, if that is what somebody needs or wants, to help get the project completed.
Madam Chair, are we ready for a motion?
No, I would like to, I think I'm looking on page 14 of the landscape guidelines, standards, the basic principles of the landscape standards. And I'll read that number 9, new plantings and landscape improvement should follow the original design principles of Albemarle Park established by Samuel Parsons. And I think if the city who built the wall on Cherokee and Cherokee were held to a standard of veneer, then I think the homeowner, especially this is an 8, I thought it was maybe more than that some places, but at least an 8-foot tall section of cinder block. And also in the architectural guidelines, it specifically says, and again, this is architectural standards, that brick, exposed concrete block and formed concrete are not allowed. So if it's not on houses, it's, I think, introducing it for such a large section, not introducing it, but not skewing better. Skewing more natural stone would be not following I don't see it as following the spirit of it. That's sort of my take on it.
Mr. Hornaday, would you mind telling me what page from the architectural standards you were reading?
Page architectural is page 30. Top of the 3 columns, the column 2, the top paragraph.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Well, I don't know that as the application stands, that we've reached any real consensus as a commission on it. How it's as it's submitted is my concern.
I would suggest
to hear from the applicant.
Putting forward a motion with veneer on the wall.
Okay, so that's a request to amend
only the repaired part, not the entire wall.
Right. So that's the applicant requesting to amend the application to include stone veneer on the portion of the wall that's being replaced. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Remind me, do we need a motion to approve that, or we just move forward with a motion that reflects that?
You can just move forward. I think it's included in the CA request. So
yeah, it's on the record that he has made that. I don't know. Aren't there other parts of this application that you haven't discussed? Those didn't get approved last time, right?
So the walkway was
other things, just to remind everybody that what else is being approved here.
Yeah, so it's the garden wall and the retaining or the walkway. Those are the 2 other things. I wrote the CA request in the motion to be similar to the the other retaining wall, that the wall, any new material would match the existing stone as closely as possible. I don't know if y'all are comfortable with that. We can leave it, or whoever reads the motion can change it to whatever you all want. But and then I thought it would be helpful for staff to verify the stone in the field with the applicant once the vegetation has been removed from the wall.
And I think, Alex, from our last meeting, we didn't have, there wasn't a lot of conversation or concerns about the other portions of this application, especially since from last month to this month, the creek bed has been removed from the scope of this project application.
Right. So it's been pared down to have less elements. So unless you all have, any thoughts on the garden wall, it seemed like you all had consensus on the walkway last time. So.
Okay, Madam Chair. Based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, project description, Exhibit B, aerial images, 5 pages, Exhibit C, wall drawings, 2 pages, Exhibit D, photographs of subject property, 14 pages, Exhibit E, image of culvert pipe, site plans, 3 pages, received October 11, 2020. Exhibit F, photographs taken by staff, 3 pages, October 14, 2020. Exhibit G, images of stone samples, 4 pages, received October 12, 2020. Exhibit H, updated application, drawings and images, 33 pages, received November 9, 2020. Exhibit I, stone sample images, 5 pages, taken by staff, November 11, 2020. And the Commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except. I move that this Commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following: that the application is to repair, rebuild collapsed concrete stormwater culvert at rear of property and an adjacent 16-foot section of retaining wall. Wall will have stone veneer matching existing areas of stone as closely as possible. Restore 38-foot by 19-foot long section of 2-foot tall stacked stone garden wall and rear yard. As much existing stone will be used as possible. Any new stone will match existing as closely as possible. Construct a 4-foot wide by 40-foot long embedded aggregate walkway from patio to driveway and rear yard. Walkway will match existing walkways on site. All work will be in accordance with attached and approved drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for walls found on pages 34 to 35 and paths and walkways on page 31 and architectural standards on page 30 of the Albemarle Park Historic District landscape design standards, as well as the standards for foundations and exterior walls found on page 30. Sorry, it was already there. In the Albemarle Park Historic District architectural design standards adopted July 8, 2015. Sorry?
I'm sorry. I think there's page 14 in the landscape guide. That's the landscape standards that was mentioned as well. Page 14.
Thank you. Let's add that. Were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, existing culvert wall is being repaired and will have veneered stone facing matching existing sections of stone as closely as possible. B, existing garden wall will be rebuilt using as much original stone as possible. Any new material will match existing as closely as possible. C, new walkway is proposed in a location where one would typically exist and will be constructed of embedded aggregate matching existing walkways on site. 4, that the application and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Albemarle Park Historic District.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that was a motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Sprang. Bill, do you want to catch the second part of that motion?
Did you vote on that?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I think we need to vote on it, and then I'll do the conditions.
Let me get right on that. Sorry. We will vote by roll call on that motion. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Oh, this is the wrong list. Hang on. Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Sprang.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Did I catch everybody so far besides me? And myself, aye also. Okay. I think that's everybody.
Okay, so the motion having passed, based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. That during construction, after vegetation is removed, staff should be consulted by the applicant so that staff may compare the stone being used to the existing stone to make sure that the stone matches. And do we want a separate condition as to vegetation, as to trees? That might be removed for the culvert?
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea to add that and just say if any trees will be affected by the culvert, then staff will be contacted to assist with amending the CA.
Okay, that's my motion.
We have a second?
Second.
That was a motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Lazarus. We will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sprang.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye as well. Okay, that concludes the hearing for that application at 16 The Circle. The next item on the agenda is new business in Biltmore Village at 3 Boston Way.
All right, thank you, Chair Kite. So you all might be familiar with this property. It's home to Corner Kitchen. The proposal is to add a metal awning covering over the patio. If you're looking at the building from Boston Way, if you're looking at it straight on, the patio is to the left. This is looking at it at an angle from Boston Way. So it's kind of a smallish patio area that's tucked in behind this hedgerow. And right now they've got umbrellas out there covering the patio in anticipation of winter season and navigating the pandemic and accommodating outdoor dining during this time. The applicants are requesting to install a metal awning over where replacing the umbrellas with this metal awning are covering. I'm not sure. I keep referring to it as something different, but it's really just a simple structure with 4 posts. It's actually pretty neat looking, I think, in terms of things that I haven't seen before. This is a helpful rendering, I think, although I think it looks a little bit taller in this Photoshop rendering than, like, if you're standing at the street, this hedgerow is pretty tall. Like, it won't be highly visible. It's less than 10 feet tall. So it's a basic extruded aluminum structure with 6 by 6 posts. And then the top of it is louvered so that when the weather's nice, it can be open to allow light in, and then it's fully closable when needed, and has a built-in guttering system so that they can kind of have this enclosed space outdoors, but it will be fully detached from the building. So in looking through the design standards for Biltmore Village, I mean, they were adopted in 1988, so not sure that they anticipated necessarily something like this, certainly not a pandemic. And so, I thought about this, long and hard, and at first kind of wasn't quite sure where to land. But I feel like really when you're looking at the standards, I looked at the standards for site design, and they're a little bit more general than I would have hoped, but I think that helps actually in this situation, give us a little bit of leeway. In my opinion, it will not be highly visible. I think the fact that it's metal helps it, with not being a more visible within the landscape. It's also not, to me, like presenting as an architectural feature that's part of the building. It's more kind of like just part of the site, and just a simple covering to me. It also won't be attached to the building, so it can be easily removed, and doesn't really obscure any architectural features at all. If you're looking at it from the side angle, it obviously kind of covers those windows, but you really don't see that. I don't think it's not very visible from the street anyway, and it's not going to extend beyond that the front building plane. So I'm not noting any concerns in my staff report, but I'm happy to go back through any of this information. I added in the slides, like the applicant submitted some drawings that are helpful. This is looking at it straight on as an elevation. And this is if you were standing in the building next door, basically. And there's also some images in your packet of this, like an example of what the structure looks like kind of from within. So, it's strange times. So I think this is a unique solution to what they're trying to accomplish. And again, if it were presenting as an architectural feature, I think I might have a little more pause if it were like appearing as an addition. But to me, it is more of a simple form within the site. So it's not highly visible already. So.
Thanks, Alex. Commissioners, are there any questions for Alex? Okay.
Alex, if the natural material sort of guidelines in the standards for Biltmore, it kind of touches on it. I can't put my finger on it right now, but since this is temporary, is that sort of your thinking? Or not temporary, but not too built? Is that your thinking on the materials being okay?
Yeah, at first I started looking at the guidelines. I'm not sure which standards you're speaking to, and it's sort of, I would love to be able to find some big pot of money to update these design standards and condense them because they are separated into these books, which makes it a little bit hard to find stuff. But at first I started like kind of hybrid looking at the standards for additions kind of alongside the site design standards. But the more I thought about it, it really does not read as an addition or, like a building to me. So I did not pull out any standards related to materials for buildings, if that's what you're referring to. And I'm happy to, as we're talking, go through those guidelines and just read kind of what you might have looked at and try to get my head around that.
One part is on the regular covered dining next door. There seems to be an addition. That roof line is aesthetic. It's just a faux pitched on a flat roof building. It appears from the street that it's cloth, right?
It is. It's a kind of that. It's like the stuff it's like a cloth, and then they paint on it with sort of this very thick paint that makes it stiffer.
Right.
And of course, that patio that you see in the middle of between the house and the structure we're discussing today was added 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. So it's pretty new. I think that used to be the driveway for the house or something. So that's new as well, fairly new.
Yeah, I wonder if that was mandated by when it went through, Alex, through the HRC 20 years ago to soften the flat roof. And I don't think this is the same, but it seems like that was very intentional and this is as permanent as the restaurant is going to be pretty permanent, the pergola that's being added. I don't think it's necessary, especially, I think it would draw more attention to, I'm talking through this out loud crazily, but I think it would draw more attention to it. The only other thing I wondered from Alex is if it wasn't a pandemic, would you approve it? And I'm totally in sympathy with the Kurt's need but I just wonder your opinion, Alex.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the same thing as having purview about costs or things like that are, those aren't things we can consider, right? I mean, we can as human beings, certainly, because we are sympathetic to all these different challenges that everyone faces, even without pandemics happening. So I definitely thought through that. And I don't think my recommendation is not coming from a place of sympathy, even though I do have that. I have sympathy, but it's not. That's my recommendation is based on the design standards and the fact that what you just pointed out is what I was basing my thoughts on, is that it's not presenting as an architectural feature. It is more just like a landscape structure in a way. So I'm looking at it from a site perspective rather than it being like a built element attached to an existing historic building, if you will, if that helps clarify.
Can I insert something here, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely.
We looked at this, my business partner and I looked at this as, okay, it might help us get some more people in on the days when it's about 45 degrees or so. It's another fairly significant chunk of days that we could use the patio. But once we started looking at it, and we've had, 6 or 8 single umbrellas out there on the patio, and now we've got these 2 big ones that make it look like almost like a room with no walls. They are all they're not very pretty. There are wires, there's ropes, there's pulleys, there are all kinds of things that you see from the inside of the restaurant, and I guess from the street too, if you're looking for that kind of thing. And once we sort of looked at that and then saw this really clean structure, it actually seemed like it's a better solution long-term without even considering the pandemic. It's just a cleaner, neater look when people walk by the house. It's not historic, we know that, but That was one of the things that struck us, and it sort of went the way of, oh my, it's going to look better anyway. So to us anyway. So I'm just throwing that in.
Commissioners, do we have other questions for Alex or the applicant at this time? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to public comment if there is any.
We have no one in the queue for public comment.
Okay. I will close the floor for public comment. Commissioners, what other feedback would you like to provide or questions? I think from my perspective, I appreciate the transparency of it. I think just as an architect, I think the roof is great, and I like the transparency of the entire thing. I appreciate the fact that it is on some level temporary, and that it's to return the building to its original configuration would not be particularly difficult. And I know over the years we've considered other applications in other districts for commercial properties where outdoor seating was important, and that was always been one of our considerations, is how easy is it to get it sort of back to its historic, restoring its historic integrity down the road, if that's the direction that a different property owner might want to go in the future. And so I know there's been a couple of examples in the Montford Historic District over the years where that's been a consideration. I think for me, the transparency makes it really easy to see the intact sort of historic pieces of the property without this new thing overriding that. And so I think it's a pretty elegant solution in this particular case. And I'd love to hear some feedback from the rest of you.
I have very simple feedback. It's a simple, low profile solution, and I have really no further comments on it.
Chairman, I think that when looking at this, it somewhat reminds me of past projects that have been for awnings and things like that, where we'll say that since it is temporary or not permanent, it kind of allows us to get away with more modern materials. So, and I also agree with what's been said, that the transparency of it and the fact that it is not obstructing the view of the historic structure, I think that helps as well.
Madam Chairman, I agree with everything that has been said. I really like how it is transparent. I like the design of it, and I definitely appreciate that it'll be replacing the umbrellas that are currently serving this purpose. I think it's going to look a lot better than those two umbrellas.
Does anyone have any concerns?
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Sounds like it.
Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to, this commission, including Exhibit A, project description, Exhibit B, aerial images, I've got the wrong one.
I know, I think I did somehow mixed up the exhibits. Hang on just a sec. Let me fix this for you.
Yeah, I'm just, it says 122 West Chestnut Street, but this is correct. Drop down plastic screening and so on.
I think this design standards are also they reference Montford.
Yeah, let me just, yeah, sorry. I don't know what I did here. Okay, so for the design standards on the staff report are correct. If you want to just use that, if you have that in front of you, Bill, and everything else looks good to go.
Okay, and the subject property will be changed, but that's not part of the motion. So, Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, project description, 2 pages, Exhibit B, elevation drawings, 2 pages, Exhibit C, site plan, Exhibit D, photographs of subject property, 3 pages, Exhibit E, rendering of proposed structure, 2 pages, Exhibit F, images of proposed material, 4 pages, Exhibit G, manufacturer specifications, 4, and cost estimate for metal structure, 5 pages, Exhibit H, Google Street View image, and the Commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except. I move that the Commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is to remove existing patio umbrellas and install a 14-foot by 27-foot wide by 9-foot 4-inch tall dark bronze extruded aluminum covering over patio area. Structure will have 2-inch by 2-inch by 8-inch cross beams supported by 6-inch by 6-inch posts. Top of structure will be louvered and will have motorized operation to open and close. Drop-down plastic screening will be installed within the structure to accommodate inclement weather. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals, as required by law, must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for site design found in Chapter 5 on pages 23 to 26 in the Biltmore Village District Design Review Standards adopted on, is this the correct date, October 1, 1988? Yes, it is. Were used to evaluate this request. 3, the application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, the patio covering will be set behind the historic front yard area and will be screened by existing landscaping. B, covering will not extend beyond the front building corner and will not obscure any architectural features of the building. C, covering will be dark metal and not highly visible. D, covering will not be attached to the building and can be removed in the future. 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Biltmore Village Historic District.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, that was the motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Spring. And we will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye. And that motion carries.
Okay, based upon the foregoing findings and the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued.
Second.
The motion was by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Lazarus. Roll call vote again. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye. That motion also carries. And that concludes the hearing on this application for 3 Boston Way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin and Joe. I'll follow up with you guys in the next few days or so.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
All right. Take care.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 55 Woodlawn Avenue in the Montford Historic District.
Thank you, Chair Kite. This application is super straightforward. It's for replacement of a non-original front door on this house on Woodlawn, which is such a sweet little house, I have to say. So the non-original door is obviously on the left and the proposed door is on the right. The rest of your application packet, I didn't put all of those slides in just to kind of save us some time, but the rest of the images in your packet are of other examples of other front doors similar to what's proposed in Montford. So staff does not have any concerns about this application, but happy to talk through anything or answer questions if you have any.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Alex? Okay. Would the applicant like to add any other additional information? I'm looking to see
if he's here.
Is on. He was on earlier, and I know he's been having internet issues.
He said he sent me an email and said he joined via the call, but Pierre, can you hear us?
If he's on the 855 number, maybe Ashley needs to.
I'm not sure he would have joined that way. I think, I see. His number he's there.
He's not on the 855 number.
He's the 786 number that's muted, but I can't unmute him. So,
sir, if you hit *6, that will unmute yourself on the line.
There we go. Now he's gone. Now he's disappeared.
Maybe he's going to call back in.
When he hops back on, Alex, just let him know to hit *6, and that'll unmute his line. That'll unmute the line for the phone call.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. And Emily or Chair Kite, I was talking to Shannon before the meeting, just to ask if there was any issue with him joining via phone instead of being on video, and she said no, and that actually an applicant doesn't even have to be present, and I don't think he necessarily has anything to add unless you guys have issues or questions for him.
I think he's joined. Pierre, you can hit *6 on your phone to unmute.
Can you hear?
We can hear
there
you.
We go.
There
can
we
you
go.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I could hear you, and I was talking and talking. Nobody could hear me. I'm sorry.
We've got it.
Are there any questions for me?
It doesn't look like there's questions at the moment. We've got to take care of any public comment that might be waiting to speak on this application.
There's no public comment on this application.
I'm going to close the floor for public comment and open any additional commissioner dialogue or entertain a motion if we're ready for that.
Sounds like we're ready for a motion.
Sounds like it.
Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, image of proposed door, Exhibit B, image of existing door and front elevation, 2 pages, Exhibit C, images of similar front doors in the historic district, 7 pages, and the commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except, I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is to replace existing non-original front door with new wood half-light door. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals, as required by law, must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for windows and doors found on pages 84 to 85 in the Montford Historic District Design Review Standards adopted on April 14, 2010 and amended December 9, 2019 were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, new door will be wood and the design is compatible with the original opening and historic character of the building. 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montford Historic District.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It was written by Vice Chair Eakins and Commissioner Lazarus. Was that you that did that? Yeah.
It was.
Thank you. We will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye. And that motion carries.
Okay, based upon the foregoing findings of fact and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued.
I'll second.
Okay. There's a motion by Vice Chair Eakins, second by Commissioner Spring. Roll call vote again. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye. And that motion also carries. That concludes our hearing for 55 Woodlawn Avenue in Montford. Our final application for this month's meeting is at 62 Cumberland Circle, also in the Montford Historic District.
I was just going to say thank you, Pierre. I will follow up with you in the next couple of days.
Very good. Thank you very much to everyone, and then you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you, Chair Kite. So this last application is, let me get to the correct slide here. So this application is for the Applewood Manor on Cumberland Circle, colonial revival, two-story colonial revival structure that has several porches. There's there's one on either end, and then there's one on the rear. So the part of this application is proposing to restore this rear porch that was enclosed at some point to its original configuration. The original drawings for this structure are in your packet. It was designed by William H. Lord. And the porch configuration is not changing, except for they're just restoring the railing, and then there's an existing opening here, I think, where they're installing 2 double hung windows within that opening. And then I think, Rob, for some reason I'm hearing myself on your
Oh, is that better?
Or maybe just can I mute you until you're ready to speak?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the main difference, I think you can see, here's the side elevation. The main difference you can kind of see as you look at the original drawings, which are down at the end of my presentation. There's a stair that comes down here off the back side. What they're proposing is to go, the stair would go off of the side here. Initially, I'll still let the applicant speak to this. I asked for clarification on why it wasn't being proposed in the exact location as the original. But I did go onto the site today just to kind of understand what the lay of the land is. And they've got this kind of concrete patio area around the base of the porch. So it'd be pretty tight. They have a bunch of seating and stuff out here. It'd be a little bit tight to kind of move around. It wouldn't be impossible, but just as an FYI on that. And also, you know, this would not be visible from the street. You wouldn't see it at all because it's tucked behind the porch in front of it. So that's one piece. The application also includes adding 2 new skylights. No big deal in that. That's something that we would approve as a minor work. They'll just match the one skylight that's already there. It's on the rear facing portion of roof. So small item. The biggest issue for this application to me, or challenge to me, is that they're proposing to change all the railing heights on the second floor to meet building code. You know, historic railings were most often 30 inches, and they're proposing to raise them up to 36 inches. There is a provision in the North Carolina Building Code for historic buildings that allows for historic railings to remain in place, even when they're not meeting the current standard. And we've encountered this many times. And for safety reasons, we understand that, you know, that sometimes that's a concern. I think there are creative solutions that could perhaps help. They could, you know, install some kind of like metal cable within the porch that you wouldn't really see from the ground. That, you know, that wouldn't necessarily be an architectural feature. You wouldn't really even see it, just as a safety measure to kind of prevent people from, you know, to have that kind of height issue mitigated. And, you know, like, and some structures, I think on all historic structures, it's important from a preservation perspective. However, for this particular structure, I feel like it's even more critical because it is designed with these double level porches where if you raise the railing on the top, it's going to throw off the proportions with the rest of the porch. It doesn't appear to me, you can actually see it in this image where they're showing the porch on the right is the one closest to you, whereas the one on the left is farther back on the building. You know, if you look at the original drawings, you can see that the railing height, oh shoot, did I not put the front in here? But you can even see it in these where the railing height aligns with the bottom of the windows. And so I feel like that is just, you know, a visual that would harm the character of this building if those were altered. So that's my main concern about the application. There was also in the project description some the replacement of the porch flooring on all the first floor porches, and the guidelines require that, you know, historic materials, even including porch flooring, if it's original, to be retained as much as possible. Obviously, you know, can get to a point where it needs to be replaced, but still, it's not super common for us to approve wholesale replacement unless there's substantial damage. So I asked for more information on that, some photographs documenting the existing conditions of those porch flooring. And I'm not sure, I'll let Rob or one of the other folks that are here for this project to speak to this, but the architect conveyed to me that they would either submit additional information or maybe not include it in the application. I'm not really sure. So I haven't received any additional info on that. So so we would recommend, repairing as much as possible if the flooring is original. But obviously that would just be pending review of whatever the conditions are on the site as far as the flooring goes. So I did add into the packet, hopefully you can access it, but just let me know if you're having trouble with the design standard folder. I did add the section of building code in there that refers to railings for historic buildings, just so you would have that as a point of reference. So I think that is all that I have to share. I noted some additional info that we were requesting for review. We did get the skylight dimensions that I need to add to the CA request while you all have your discussion. The window specs also are in there, and so that was it. So happy to help answer questions.
Commissioners, are there questions for Alex?
Hey, Alex. On page 73 of the Montford guidelines, item 6, I'm sure that's what you were talking about when the porch is missing, and then there's a drawing of what it should be. That it should go to that. If a historic porch entrance or balcony is missing, replace it with either a reconstruction based on accurate documentation or a new design compatible with the historic character. So you're kind of going historic character instead of the architectural drawing on the steps going up to the kitchen.
Well, so I think and again, I'll let them speak to you all on their reasoning for the location of the stairs. To me, it wasn't a critical feature of the porch. Like if it were in a different location and it were highly visible, I might take a stronger stance on it being entirely exactly like the original plan was. But that it won't be visible, it's not really, to me, it doesn't really alter the character of the whole porch or the building to have the steps in a different orientation. But, obviously that's up for discussion. And that is why I pointed it out, just to, so that we can have that as part of our conversation.
I think, Will, the way I heard what you were just reading too, it's an or choice without hierarchy. So you can either match what was drawn originally or design or do something that's compatible. There didn't seem in what you read to be any kind of hierarchy on which was preferred.
Gotcha.
And that, I guess, I'm looking, I think, a little bit for confirmation, Will, from you that maybe you read it the same way or that others read it that way as well, as we look to.
No, I agree that it's an either or. Just I think it's a little glaring when the plan is there for what was there from the balustrade to those stairs, and I completely agree that the raising that to 30 a bar, a booster bar on top of there, or some other solution that's dark and disappears, so it doesn't look horsey with those big, tall, second-story balustrade.
Okay. It looks like we've got a few folks here on behalf of the application. Rob, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, this is Rob Moody with Hands of Sean Perry, and been talking with the applicants, and they are okay to explore the cable idea in the upper level. Their main goal is safety for their clients, for the folks that are staying at the inn, and they want to be able to use the upper level porches. So we could go with the cable design there, and totally understood that the massing would be off, and it was something that we had talked about. And As far as the porch floors as well, we've done a lot of work on the historic porches in the neighborhood, and I think there is a fair amount that we can salvage and only replace where it's actually rotten. And there are a few boards that are actually rotten, but we'd replace it again with tongue and groove pine that would match the original.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Or if there's other folks here on behalf of this application that would like to add something, I think there's a few others, Brent Campbell or Robin Collins, if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. I'll also add that the location of the stair is for flow and use of that back area for entertainment. It's a good space for their business, and since the porch and the full foundation, there's a stone foundation below that with some lattice. You really cannot see the stairs from the front at all. So the stairs in that location is more important to the applicant than the railing is, since there's an alternative to the railing being raised that could meet the safety guidelines and also the historic guidelines.
Rob, what are the dimensions of the skylights?
There, the existing skylight that's in there is 22 by 28, so sitting between what I'm assuming is 24-inch on center rafters. And then what we propose is that we go back with 24 by 24 is the call number for the Velux skylights, but it would be 22 by on the inside, and I don't remember the exact height, but close to 24.
So 22 by 24 approximately.
Correct.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Okay, then I'm going to open the floor for public comment.
No one's on the line for public comment.
Thank you. And we'll close the floor for public comment. Commissioners, what other comments or questions do you have? I've got, the subject of the railings. I appreciate the willingness to consider options there. I understand where this is, got sort of a commercial use in a residential district. I think there is maybe a heightened need for us to consider safety differently than we might if this was a single family residence. Obviously, I spend a fair bit of time reading the building code every day. So I think if there is a nice, elegant solution that maintains the integrity of the massing of those porches and the railings, but can offer a level of comfort and code compliance in an alternate detail, I think that would be appreciated in terms of putting a cable rail system or something behind there that can be really just sort of falls away from what's visible. And I also don't particularly have concerns about the stair and its location as proposed. Other commissioners?
I have no concerns as proposed.
Mm-hmm. I think there would be a housekeeping item to amend the application to reflect the change to the railing design, if that's the direction that the applicant would like to go. And so, Rob, it might be if we are looking to move forward on the application with a motion tonight, we would need you to sort of address the commission with a request to amend the application with some details about the proposed change.
Yes, ma'am. I think that, well, the clients are good with that, and we could submit a design detail to staff as soon as we get that worked up. But we'd work with staff to find something that's amenable and as low profile as possible.
Alex, are you comfortable with that review at the staff level?
I am.
Okay, I think for the record, we've got an amendment to or request to amend the application to submit alternative railing details to staff for final approval, and that the existing railings would remain intact. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think also whoever reads the motion, when you get to the sentence about the porch flooring, I can help you, but just basically saying repair porch flooring as needed, retaining as much original material as possible, and just make it that simple. And then that way they can repair them as needed. Does that work for you, Rob? Is that what you all are comfortable?
Yes, that sounds great.
Sounds like we're ready for a motion. Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, project description, Exhibit B, photographs of subject property, Exhibit C, existing and proposed floor plans and elevation drawings, 13 pages, Exhibit D, original architectural drawings, 2 pages, Exhibit E, perspective renderings, Exhibit F, site plan, Exhibit G, skylight specifications, Exhibit H, revised site plan, received November 9, 2020. Exhibit I, Velux product guide, 12 pages, received November 9, 2020. Exhibit J, window image and specifications, 40 pages, received November 9, 2020. And the Commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except. I move that this Commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is to restore original 2-story porch and rear elevation of primary structure, construct a new stairway leading from restored porch to side yard, install 2 Marvin Wood 4x4 double hung SDL or true divided light windows in existing open within porch, replacing 30-inch tall original wood porch railings on second story of the structure.
And strike that, Bill.
Okay, yep.
Could just say install cable system within second story porch railings. Does that work?
Okay. Install cable system within existing porch railings on second story of the structure. Replace rotten porch flooring on first floor with matching wood flooring matching original. Install 2 new Velux approximately 22 by 24 skylights on rear facing portion of roof. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for porches, entrances, and balconies found on pages 72 to 73, accessibility and life safety modifications on pages 54 to 55, windows and doors on pages 84 to 85, and utilities and mechanical systems on pages 82 to 83 in the Montford Historic District Design Review Standards adopted April 14, 2010, and amended December 9, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, original porch on rear elevation is being restored. New porch railings. No, we're not going to do any of that. The B is actually, we're going to go to C, right?
Correct.
Porch floors are being repaired as needed while retaining and preserving as much historic porch flooring material as possible and replacing any unretained porch flooring material with wood matching the original. D, new skylights will be located on the rear facing roof slope. 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montford Historic District.
We have a second. Okay. That was a motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Watson. We'll vote by roll call. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye.
Okay, the motion having been approved based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following condition. 1, that applicant submit for staff approval the alternate, the second story porch design details.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Vice Chair Eakins and a second by Commissioner Watson. Roll call vote. Vice Chair Eakins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday.
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Aye.
Commissioner Spring.
Aye.
Commissioner Watson.
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Myself, aye. And that motion also carries. And that concludes the final hearing on our agenda.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Rob. Follow up with y'all in the next few days.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Alex, we have other business?
I don't have anything on my list for this agenda, but if anyone has anything that they want to discuss, now's your time.
I think I made it through the whole script this month.
You did great, as always.
For the first time in all the months. I didn't mess that up, so that's good.
I move we adjourn.
I think that's
Second.
That's good to go.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.